Did you know that buyer's agents don't just open doors? And sometimes we get so dialed in, and especially with all the noise, there's some, people out there that are talking about the not need for agents and all of this stuff. And the consumer is the one that's kind of in the crosshairs here. So with that said, we're going to dive into what buyer's agents do, the importance of this choice, and ask the question, do we really do more than open doors? Because if that's what you think, and you are fully capable of getting yourself into a home, representing yourself in the best to get the best deal, here's the deal. I'm the first realtor that's going to say absolutely do it. You have that right, you have that will, and I want for you to be able to have that option, right? I'm not the one that's going to hammer this down your throat. We're just going to talk about what we do. So if you don't know, I'm Jeremy Kane with eXp Realty, living in the Denver suburbs on YouTube. I help people like you that are watching get into homes, sell homes, and ultimately build wealth through real estate. So if that's you and you're interested in chatting, please reach out, because I got some space on my calendar because that guy found somebody else to show him that house 1 hour earlier. So let's talk about how that all plays out. So first and foremost, what buyers don't see behind the scenes, right? Last night I came home and I worked for this for an hour. An hour, not a big deal, but I prepared the contract. I explained it in a video because it was late at night. I wanted to make sure that he had a face with the name. I wanted to make sure that he understood what he was going to be signing as we met in the morning. I then scheduled the 2 showings that he asked me to show. And then I also spent about 45 minutes doing research on how we could expand this. He was in a low price point. And so as we're going, right, the wheels start to spin, right? And I'm like, okay, here's kind of his max price point. But the truth is, when a lender gives you a max price point, there's a lot of things on the table. So I'm doing that. I'm sending him some stuff that might work, see what he's liking. I knew where he worked. I knew his price point. And ultimately, I knew those two listings that he was interested in, so I was going to reach out. So we did that. We pushed that out there, and so that's kind of the beginning, right? The search, getting a search set up, or manually searching as an agent, getting the paperwork together and explaining to it so my buyers are educated, so they know what they're signing. And that's one of the biggest keys, and the first thing that goes into an agency agreement, right, is what an agent does. Are they just throwing papers at you, sign this, sign that, or are they explaining actually what you're signing? Because at the end of the day, these are legally binding contracts, whether it's a contract with your agent or a contract with the seller, between seller and buyer. All these things have legal ramifications when you really step back and look at it. So that's step number 1. If you are out there, you're like, oh, I got that. I got ChatGPT. I can do it all. You don't need an agent, right? That's just step 1. However, if you want some advice and you want some, help along the way, maybe you do need an agent. I don't know. If that's you don't fully understand the contracts, you've never done it before, or you have done it before, but as you know, things have changed, you know who to call. My number's right here on the screen or in the comments below. So let's talk a little bit about that. After that initial process, and maybe there's some automated emails coming out with, homes in your search criteria and so on and so forth, then it's about, okay, how do we do this? How do we get into the homes to show it? Do we have access? Can we just call, the next agent on whatever website that you click their pretty face on? Certainly you can do that. You don't know who it is. It's, a crapshoot. For the most part, those agents are newer agents. Not to say that newer agents are bad or whatever, but I'm going to tell you, in the lower price points, experience and relationships matter. So that's a huge deal. Some new agents are great. I'm not here to hate on agents whatsoever, but I am here to talk to you about, okay, what's this look like? Because ultimately, if it's that big of a deal to get into a home 15 minutes earlier on a Thursday morning, when you know that, or you should know maybe, that they're going to probably take offers through the weekend in those lower price points, especially if there's competition, then we need to talk about this, right? Do you have the time to sort through that, to get into those homes, to, find those open houses on those agent days, whatever that is? But those agents that are on the phone ready to go, right? They could be there, but you don't know who you're going to get. You could get one of the best agents in Denver. You could get one of the worst. You never know. So if you have time to sort through that, and if the most important thing to you is getting in that door the very first, which sometimes works and sometimes doesn't, not necessarily as much anymore, then you don't need an agent, right? If you have the ability to open the doors when you want the doors open, like the Wizard of Oz, then that's great. Definitely don't need an agent. Keep doing what you're doing. I'll be cheering for you, right? Now let's move to the next piece, right? Those relationships with agents. How's that look? How do we actually take it from the setup, the initial, right? And ultimately, this client and some other clients are like, we just need to get in as fast as we can. Well, here's the deal. It's not 2020. It's not 2021. And you actually do have a little bit of time and some price points. And likely, if there's multiple showings in a day, they're at least going to let those showings take place. So that timing is absolutely huge and something that you have to understand by knowing the market. So let's kind of keep this rolling here. Let's talk a little bit about the next phase, right? Because we love all these houses. We get into them. Oh, that one smelled like dog pee. This one, whatever. Or we love this one and we wrote an offer with ourselves or whoever we wrote it with, but we didn't win, right? Which is likely the case. And so, because ultimately, sometimes, a lot of times you don't get the first offer that you put in because you're kind of getting your feet wet. You're like, okay, well, we need these concessions and we need this and we need that. So it kind of takes some time. So the next phase is, all right, let's take this strategy and find you the best home possible that fits your criteria that you need, that's within your price point. Well, sometimes that home isn't always listed right there. And then sometimes that home is in a higher tax bracket or a lower tax place. And if that's the case, when lenders sit down to look at these numbers, you have the purchase price, you have your down payment, right? That takes that away. So that's the first part of the monthly payment. And then you have taxes and insurance and HOA if there is an HOA. Some HOAs are $200 in attached homes or $50 in detached, whatever it is a month. And some HOAs are $1,000 a month, depending on what it is, right? And so that's the first thing that you need to be aware of because that fluctuates the most. Then we go to taxes, right? Taxes fluctuates a ton as well, right? Some counties have low taxes, some counties have high taxes. At the end of the day, that goes into the payment, basically divided by 12, what that yearly tax rate is, and the lender's adding that onto the mortgage that you have to, fit inside that debt to income. Or maybe you're a smart buyer and you're like, I really only want to spend $2,500 a month on rent or rent mortgage. So we're going to stick to this price point. Well, now the taxes are in there. Now the HOA is in there. And then insurance, again, very variable, especially in our area now with the mountains and the fire danger and the hail and all the things. And so then that goes in there. So you could be in a low insurance area, a low tax area, and have no HOA. And all of a sudden that 375 estimate, that the lender gave you could be, 400 or 415 or whatever that is. And so then the next step is, okay, has this home been on the market? Maybe it's listed at 415. It's been on 10 days. Well, I know that market's still pretty competitive anywhere because that's the cheapest you can get a house for in Colorado, pretty much, in Denver at least. And so if they take that number and you're like, okay, well, it's listed at 415, but for you to fit in the box of your lender and what you want your payment to be, you got to get that house with those taxes, with that insurance, that HOA for, $415 with a $15,000 concession. Well, is a $15,000 concession on a house that has been in the market for 10 days completely out of the mix right now? No, it's opportunity time for buyers. And so maybe you can get into that detached home that doesn't have that HOA because the seller is getting desperate, getting cold feet because they're like, man, we've been on 2 weekends and they're still stuck in 2020 and we're ready to go. And their agent's starting to talk to them, hey, we need to do this, we need to do that. Usually agents start with price reduction. We won't go there. But if they're talking about making a price reduction and an offer comes in for the net amount that their price reduction would have been, they're likely to take it before they lower the price. so that you have that opportunity. So knowing that, knowing how to work with the math, knowing how that works is huge for an agent, because the lender is going to say, here's kind of cut and dry, general, send me some properties that you're interested in. So the buyer automatically thinks that's after the fact. If you as the buyer can do all of that, you probably don't need an agent. Next, we move on to getting under contract and the sales process and all of those things. Okay, those negotiations matter, the agent's relationship matter. My number one goal is to make buyer and seller come together. Buyer wants to buy, seller wants to sell. It's not my job to get in a street fight with the other agent over a negotiation or something. It's not about us, it's about them. And so we work diligently in our community to keep those relationships strong. Do I know every agent that I write contracts on? No, but does every agent know me by the time I'm submitting an offer, because I call them and introduce myself and tell the story and plant the seed about my client? Yes. And so that gives you the upper hand in negotiations. I've had contracts get accepted because they're written so well, even though they weren't the highest. I've had agents come back to me and say, hey, we really like your guys' scenario. Can you come up $5,000? And then I get to go back to my buyer and say, hey, it's yours for $5,000 more, yes or no? Yes, boom, let's go. No, okay, we're on to the next. But building that relationship and having those relationships in the last 12 years in my market is absolutely key to success, not for me, but for my clients. And so as we move forward here, we're talking a little bit about all these nuances that come in. And at the end of the day, we need to be clear. And we need to look at where we're going. Is this our first house? Is this our dream house? Is this our downsized house? Is this a house we didn't really want to buy that we're trying to get rid of? Whatever it is, but we need to make sure that you as the buyer doesn't have that remorse, doesn't have that situation where you don't like what you did. It's not what it is. It's no good, right? So then we're going to make sure we do the front end work and the contract work, the negotiating work. And then at the end of the day, if it is the one, then our relationship has just begun, right? We're going to manage that asset. We're going to take care of that. We're going to do all the things to make sure that your asset and your investment is as strong as possible. I don't control the market, but I can absolutely advise you on everything that you need when it comes to your house, when it comes to living in that community. And so this is the next step. So if you can do all of those things and you're fully aware of what goes on in the market and all of those things, you don't need an agent. The truth is that still in today's market, the seller is 9 times out of 10, actually 10 times out of 10 in my case, paying the buyer's agent. And so you have the opportunity to be represented, to have the experience, to have an agent that's going to have your back, not only for those 30 to 60 days within, the home search and the contract and the closing, but for a lifetime, right? It's my job to help you maintain that relationship with your home so that you can make the best decisions, get the best bang for your buck for your improvements, and ultimately help that home be the launch pad for your starting a wealth journey that is absolutely incredible, which I have done personally and helped others do. As we manage those assets, we make those moves, we make the plans, we budget, we make the right investments, we make the right improvements on our home, because not only do I have a great list of vendors, but I've also helped a ton of people be like, okay, we want to buy a house, we want to get our feet on the ground, then we want to move in 2 years, right? The house hacking route. And no matter what you choose, managing that asset and having someone on your side is 100% worth every single dollar, especially when the seller's paying it. So if you're interested in anything I said irked you or got your ears open, let me know. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to help you. Ultimately, it is a choice. You do not have to have a buyer's agent. If you feel 100% confident in all the strategies and all the things, and you have the relationships and you have the knowledge for the contracts and you have the knowledge to manage the asset, then absolutely, I wish you the best. I want you to do what you can do. I want you to save money or the seller's money, whatever, you can sort that out. But if not, reach out to me. I'd love to have a buyer's consultation with you, even if it's 3, 4, 5 years down the road and you want to make sure you're ready when the time comes. I'm your guy. Reach out, phone number, DM me on Instagram, Facebook, or put a comment on YouTube. We'll talk to you guys later. Have a great night.